Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. This is the first segment of the Book of Marriage from ummdatul-akham by Imam al-Maqdisi, rahimahullah ta'ala, and want to talk about the origin of marriage and the religion, where the marriage stems from, and the religion.
Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, salatu wa salam ala Rasulil Kareem wa ala alihi wa ashabihi wa salam tasliman kathira wa ba'd. So praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and sending the salutations upon his blessed noble prophet. So now inshallah we will begin our class in the Book of Marriage. The Book of Marriage. And what's meant by the Book of Marriage is that marriage has a lot of things connected to it, socially, religiously, and from the deen of Allah that we learn about those things that are part of the religion, that are important to us in our worship and in our daily lives. So thus many of the scholars have written books about marriage, and they call it kitab-ul-nikah. Kitab meaning this aspect of marriage, then the next aspect, then the next aspect. So kitab means a conglomerate, collection, or compilation of subject matters relating to the topic. So in this case, it is the topic of marriage. Thus it is called Kitabu and Nikah in the Arabic language. Kitabu meaning generally, and Nikah, marriage, the subject matter. It will be taken from the famous book, the great book, ummdatul-akham, which is a book written, it's found out many years ago, hundreds of years ago, by one of the great scholars by the name of Abdul Ghani ibn Abdul Wahid al-Maqdisi al-Hanbali, rahimahullah. And may Allah have mercy on him and give him a blessing for his great contribution. As many scholars teach from this book, they have memorized it, their students have memorized it, and I had the pleasure myself to study from it and memorize from it over the years in Yemen. The Sheikh, he mentioned Bab al-Nikah, the book of marriage. So we will just mention a little bit, inshallah, and then we'll continue after Isha. So somebody tell me when 10 minutes comes, tell me you have 5 minutes left, and then we'll count down the 5 minutes and we'll stop. As we do 15 minutes now, and then we do 15 minutes after Isha. So if people want to run, they can go home and either come back. So the Sheikh, he starts by saying, النكاح حقيقة في اللغة الوطئ يطلق وجازا على العقد. The first part of the statement, the Sheikh, he says the word النكاح حقيقة في اللغة, meaning the way that the word النكاح is used. It's used two different ways, from a language perspective and then from a religious standpoint. So he says the word nikah, it really means having relations, sexual relations. This is the word called al-wata'i. So the word in Arabic, al-wata'i, means sexual relations. So this is the meaning linguistically. Nikah, it carries that meaning. So when you say nikah, one of the meanings is sexual relations. And then he says, but it also can be dispatched and used partially to mean the contract agreement that allows you to have sexual relations, because you have sexual relations that are permissible and sexual relations that are not permissible. Sexual relations that Allah, He enjoins and He loves you to partake in, and sexual relations that Allah, He does not enjoin, rather He forbade you and He does not like you to partake in. So the Sheikh is talking about that which is halal, that which is okay with Allah, then that type of sexual intercourse, it has a contract to it. And then he says, rahimahullah ta'ala, وَالنِّكَاحُ وكل ما اللفظ نكاح في القرآن يراد به يراد به العقل إلا لقوله تعالى فلا تحل له حتى تنكح زوجا غيره. He said, so and now he's going to solidify his statement with the verse. He said, therefore, talking about the meaning of nikah, meaning sexual intercourse, and also having the meaning of a marriage agreement. He said, every place in the Quran that you find this word nikah, it means the contract of marriage. Except in one verse, it means sexual relations. He said, and that is the verse where Allah says the meaning in English, فَلَا تُحِلُّ لَهُ, and it is not permissible for that man, meaning who was married to a lady, and he divorced the lady 3 times, حَتَّى تَنْكِحَ زَوْجًا غَيْرَهُ, until she marries another man, and in this case, nikah means and has relations with him. Because, again, nikah means intercourse. But it also means the contract between the man and the woman that allows them to have that intercourse in a halal way. So, likewise, the opposite of nikah is at-talaqu, to separate, divorce. So Allah mentions there's 3 times for a man to divorce a lady. He divorces her once. Then they reconciliate. Then he decides it's not going to work. He divorces her a 2nd time. Then they reconciliate. On that 3rd time, if he divorces her, this is the verse that the Sheikh is quoting. فَلَا تُحِلُّ لَهُ حَتَّى تَنْكِحَ زَوْجًا غَيْرَهُ. And that man cannot have that lady. It is not permissible for him to be with that lady anymore until tankiha here means till she have relations. Zawjan, meaning a man in a contract of marriage. Ghayra, other than that man who divorced her 3 times. This is the only verse the Sheikh says that nikah means intercourse. Every other place in the Quran, nikah, it means the contractual agreement between the 2 spouses, which allows them to have sexual relations. So what time is it now? How many minutes left?
7:58.
How many minutes I got left? Somebody
Go ahead.
tell you. So the Sheikh he mentioned this in the beginning to give the person the understanding before he just starts to talk about verses and hadith. You need to understand the terminology, so when something is mentioned, you'll understand this means contract or this doesn't mean intercourse. But then this is why he's explaining it. So any other time that you hear in the Quran the word nikah, except this verse, which is the Surah Al-Baqarah, it means the contract between the man and the lady. And the Shaykh, he goes on and he says, وَالْآيَةٌ فِي ذَلِكَ كَثِيرًا. He said there are a lot of verses to prove this. He said, أَمَّا فِي الْقُرْآنِ, as far as the Quran, he said, قَالَ اللَّهُ تَعَالَى فَانْكِحُوا مَا طَابَ لَكُمْ مِنَ النِّسَاءِ. He said Allah mentions in Surah An-Nisa, and choose the ladies of your choice. Choose the ladies of your choice. Here, meaning for the marriage contract. Fankihu is the form of the word nikah in a plural form in a command way. But Allah is not saying find any lady you like and have intercourse with her. How do we know that? Because the Sheikh already mentioned the one verse where nikah means intercourse. Every other time it means the marriage contract between you. So Allah said, فَانْكِحُوا مَا طَابَ لَكُمْ مِنَ النِّسَاءِ مَثْنَى ثَلَاثَ وَثُلَاثُ وَرُبَاعَ. 2, 3, or 4. And we'll get to that part of the verse at another time because the Sheikh didn't mention that. He only mentioned what he wanted to prove for the marriage contract. He said, وَأَمَّا فِي السُّنَّةِ, and in the way of the Prophet, he said, وَالْآثَرَ كَثِيرًا. And there are many narrations talking about marriage in the Sunnah. Sunnah meaning statement of the Prophet. It says qawliya. It says also fi'liya, the actions of the Prophet, and taqririya, and something somebody else did and the Prophet approved it. congratulations, this is approval. Making dua for the person who got married, that's approval of the marriage. And him telling someone to get married and him doing it himself, all three of these have been proven the issue of marriage. He said, wal ijma', and the general body of the Muslims will all agree that marriage has its root in the Quran and the Sunnah. وَأَصْلُهُ فِي كِتَابِ وَسُنَّةٍ. He says, so thus the origin of this whole concept of making a contract to be with a lady is in the Quran and the Sunnah, and all of the Muslims agree to that. Then he mentioned the statement of the Prophet where he said, Ya ma'shar al-shabab, all you group of young men. And he said that this hadith, and he didn't mention it all. I'll mention some of the other part. Man istata'a minkum al-ba'a falyatazawwaj. Falyatazawwaj meaning get married, make the marriage contract. It's the old group of young men. And many of the scholars will say the reason he mentioned old young men and not middle-aged or older men, because the ones who tend to kick the most, they have the most oats, they have the most desire for the sweetie pie, for the woman, for the girl, it's the youth. So that's why he said, oh, you group of young men, whoever has the ability and the desire. And many of the scholars said, istita'a here, the word istita'a, the ability, doesn't mean physical. Because Allah created every man with, or male I should say, with an organ. It said istita'a here means maliyah. He has something to take care of the girl. But it doesn't make a difference how much, how little. You have something. Where you going to live on the street? You're going to marry and put some cardboard down and lay on the cardboard? What's she going to eat? You're going to eat grass like a cow and a goat? What you going to eat? You got to have something. You know, even if it's making ends meet and barely making, you have something. So this is the thing that he mentioned. To show marriage from the Sunnah and also from the Book of Allah, these verses. Then he said, وَحَثَّ عَلَيْهِ الشَّارِعُ الْحَكِيمُ. And hath means you push somebody to do it. You incite somebody to do it. It said a shari'. A shari' here means the one who legislates. That's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that doesn't mean Allah's name is a shari'. This is a description of Allah, the one who gives the legislation. A shari'. He said al-Hakim. Now this is the name of Allah, al-Hakim. But the shari' is not. It's a description of Allah wa ta'ala. And it's permissible to mention Allah by a description because He's the one who's Ahkaam al-Hakimin, the best to make legislation, the one who has the most knowledge about what to do and what not to do. So the Shaykh has mentioned this because many people think that this is the issue of society and civilization. No, this issue of marriage is legislated from Al-Hakim. So same-sex marriage, Allah knows it's not healthy. Yani, a'udhu billah, yani, outside of marriage relations, a'udhu billah, it's a bad thing. And all of these things that the Shaykh is getting ready to mention, he says, lima yatarattab alayhi fa'idatul jalila. Why did Allah legislate marriage? He said because it has so many great benefits to marriage. And he's going to mention this. We won't be able to mention this class. It will be next week perhaps. He's going to mention some of the reasons behind marriage. And we did this already in the other masjid. I think you were there and some other brothers. But this is one of the reasons Allah legislated. Has so many lofty benefits. Fawaid al-Jalila. He didn't just say fawaid, benefits and advantages. He said fawaid al-Jalila, lofty, great, spectacular. He said, وَيُدَفَعُ مُفَاسِدَ الْجَسِيمَ. And this marriage, believe it or not, because it's a union prescribed by Allah, and the person has to make his oath that he's going to marry that lady and she's going to marry that man based on the book of Allah, meaning learn to follow what Allah said and the sunnah of his messenger. That marriage in itself, the Sheikh says, وَيُدَفَعُ مُفَاسِدَ الْجَسِيمَ. Yudafa'u means to push, repel. Mufasid here is talking about diseases. Jasima of the body. So look, the people who marry and don't make illegal intercourse, you won't find them with gonorrhea, syphilis, AIDS, VD, and all of these nasty diseases that people pass around. But look to the people who having relations out of marriage. Even if he's married, but he's cheating around, look at all of the diseases. And I'm talking about countries that have been known for hundreds, thousands of years, has more than one wife. No diseases, no sicknesses, transmitted diseases. But as soon as you go to societies, or as soon as those people turn to illegal intercourse, look at the punishment and the form of the disease. And that's why the Sheikh said, Yudfa'u mufasida jasiba. From the benefits of the marriage, it protects your body from those nasty diseases. Allah. SubhanAllah. So this is where we will stop, inshallah, until the next dars from the book of the Sheikh, Imam Abdul Ghani al-Maqdisi, rahimahullah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless the Sheikh for his magnificent work that he left for Islam and the Muslims. Inshallah. Any questions, comments, or corrections? Not above mistakes. I made one last week. I changed the number around. Sheikh called it. Alhamdulillah. Any comments, corrections, or questions? You on the air too?
So, in essence, in order to have a sexual relationship, then the first part of nikah has to entail a contract in its meaning.
Yes. Yes. Shouldn't tell that. Even the one of the verses the Sheikh he mentioned, because this is his introduction before he starts to mention hadith al-awwal, hadith of that, the first hadith around marriage, the second. This is a prelude. He also mentioned, just along those lines you just mentioned, one of the dalil he mentioned about the benefits of the marriage. He quoted the verse where Allah said, Fankih ayman minkum, and marry the right hand possessed from amongst you. This is profound, man. Listen to this. Fankih ayman minkum, and marry the right hand possessed from amongst you. Wama adraka ma ayman minkum, and what will make clear to you what is the ayman minkum, right hand possession translated. When you fight and you win, and we're not talking about terroristic, we're talking about somebody come to stomp you out, you gotta defend yourself and you win, and they flee. Everything you confiscate lawfully, like they say, spoils of wars, prisoners of wars, this is real talk. So them people you capture, there's a way you deal with them Islamically. The women, they belong to you. Just like that man's money, his weapons, his camels, or in this case, SUVs or tanks, whatever, they're yours. So them ladies, you can have relations with them. It's not illegal intercourse. Allah still said, because of the protection of the marriage contract, marry the right hand possessed from amongst you. SubhanAllah. Although you can have relations with her, and it's not zina, it's not rape. You gotta feed her good, clothe her. She work, do stuff like a servant, but you can have relations with her. Why? Because you own her, you capture her, and at any given time, guess what? You can free her and let her go, and she be a regular person, even though she was part of those people who you were fighting in war. Allah still said, because of the blessing and the protection and the marriage contract, marry the right hand possessed from amongst you. SubhanAllah. Allah Akbar. Showing that nothing is better than that oath and that contract of marriage between a man and a woman. Allahu Akbar. And Allah knows best.
I got a question.
Yes.
So if you didn't get married like downtown, but you got married in the masjid, that's still great, right?
This is the concept of marriage for us. Not the white man or the black man or the green man, or for that reason the token black man's city hall. Nobody's city hall.
Right.
There's a protocol in the marriage how you get married. But now we're not stepping on the city hall because it's part of the land we live in. So you're allowed, or recommended strongly in some cases by Islam. In other cases, commanded to follow the laws of the land. So, like the red light, you can't say, well, I don't have to follow that. Allah didn't tell us to follow no red light, but they're the laws of the land for safety you have to follow.
Right.
The marriage, you don't have to follow like that. You can get married in the masjid, People will know you to be the husband, will know her to be the wife, and even in some cases, the state recognizes the Islamic marriage. They do. So, but if a person wants to go to City Hall, or like many of the masajid I hear in the South, I haven't heard that much in the North, they kind of make you go because something happened before where a couple was already married and the guy wanted to do something. He wanted to marry another wife. He didn't tell the masjid, listen, I'm legally married. They married him. She found out and went and sued the masjid and made a bunch of problems. So now people, they don't want to exercise it. Listen, if a guy want to get married, if he have the wali, the man who's in charge, the lady, the marriage gift, 2 witnesses, the masjid don't have to have nothing to do with that, but that guy should be upfront but say, listen, I got another wife legally. If you marry him, that's on them. But because masajid or institutions, the masjid is an organization, legally, if they're registered in that state and city, they can be in court and people just say, we're not dealing with that. So they'll tell you, listen, no second wife. But they can't tell you it's haram. Like some people go that far to say it's mamnur or it's haram. We can't marry, it's prohibited. They can't do that. They can say we don't like to do it. For us, it's makruh because the harm that it could cause if somebody has a wife silverly and we don't know and he comes to get married again, now she want to trip and take us to court and take him to court. So for that reason, we don't like to do it. But to say it's haram, mamnur, you can't say that. You can't say. Only Allah can make haram. You see what I'm saying? And people will say that quickly, but they won't say nothing about same-sex marriage and this and that. They play the Rodney King game. Why can't we all get along? No, you can't do it. Be quiet on everything. If you're going to be quiet on something, don't tell a Muslim you can't. I mean, they'll even say if you want to get married outside the masjid, that's fine. Some people go that far and say, you want to get married outside the masjid, but we won't do it. Some people flat out just say, it's haram, you shouldn't do it because that story, and then they take it as story. You see? So, yes, it's accepted if you go outside the masjid and you do it. I did one in my house. The brother has a wife legally. She wanted him to get married. She brought the case to him. I think it will be good for you to marry such and such. She'll be my co-wife. She's got a bad situation. I need help with a bunch of children. He said, okay. He came to me. He explained. He said, listen, Sheikh, I ain't playing no games. I can't go to the masjid because the first thing I told him, why are you going to go to Molid? He didn't, man. Over Abad Rahman. And he said, I can't because X, Y, and Z. But we straight and we clean. This is what we want to do. And once I got all the confirmations from the families, I did it in my house. And they got a little paper to show they got married, but they can't take it to the state. And, they're okay. So, alhamdulillah. ونسأل الله سبحانه وتعالى التوفيق وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا الحمد لله.
There's a correction for the verse that I mentioned in this segment where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَانْكِحُوا أَيْمَانَ مِنْكُمْ. I quoted the verse wrong. It's وَانْكِحُوا أَيْمَانَ مِنْكُمْ, and marry you all the right hand possessed from amongst you. Yes.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. والصلاة والسلام على رسوله الكريم وعلى آله وأصحابه وسلم تسليما كثيرا وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله وبعد. After Salat al-Maghrib, we began the class in Al-Arba'in Nabawiyah, the 40 Hadith of Imam Nawawi rahimahullah. And we had decided that we will do 15 minutes after Maghrib and then another maybe 15 minutes after Isha for those who need to go home and to eat and break fast and